Hey guys! Long time no speak. I'm very sorry for that. Things have been just a bit mad. That will happen from time to time, but don't worry, I'm never disappearing permanently. It's just that my health gets bad, my mum's health gets bad. When all of that comes together, it can make for a very difficult time. But I'm back, and I have been here all along, just things have been a bit crazy. So I'm just going to crack on. I'm going to be doing a Q&A. I wasn't sure whether to do this, whether you need to be a famous YouTuber to do it. But I thought maybe you guys would have some questions, and like, I'm an open book. So I have had quite a few sent in, and I don't want to go on and on, so I'm going to just crack on right now. I've put them into like a random chooser so that they'll be coming up at random. So if you guys have asked more than one question, you might not get like 10 from one person, 5 from one person, you know, it'll be coming at random. So let's just begin. Okay, so the first question is from Ellie, and Ellie asks, who are your favourite YouTubers? Well, no, your favourite vegan YouTubers, excuse me. So besides obviously the obvious choices who, you know, I think most who are like vegan staples, you know, James Aspie, Jerry Carbstrong, Earthling Ed, you know, those are like the staples, aren't they? I absolutely love Tofu Tommy. He's adorable, and I think he's so courageous. He's fought through so much. So by the way, I'll put a link to all of these people in the description below, so please check them out. Please check out Tofu Tommy. He's so fantastic, and I relate with him so much because I too have battled with eating disorders, so I think he's a really incredible YouTuber. Tisha The Brave, I think she's incredible. She's like, her channel isn't primarily vegan, but she is a vegan in herself, and she does have some like vegan videos, but she's a really cool person. She's very unusual, like she's like, not only is she like vegan and a feminist and just very into like human rights, but she's also a Christian, and she just has some very cool things to say, so definitely check her out. Tisha The Brave, fantastic lady. And then more recently, who I only discovered have a YouTube channel, are my darling friends Danielle and John, and they are the Vegan Veg Gardeners. Again, link in the description below, check them out. They do a lot to do with gardening. They run an allotment, and Danielle actually does my garden, which is very nice. So she's really talented, and I can tell. So, and they're like 2 of the nicest people you'll ever wish to meet. So yes, those are like the main vegan YouTubers that I watch, along with all the like staples. And I subscribe to like a lot of like farm sanctuaries just because cute. Okay, so next question. April asks, what is the greatest struggle that you've overcome? That's a really good question, April. So for me, I suppose it would be my eating disorders, because I think, I don't know, people say that anorexia is as tough to overcome as heroin addiction, and that doesn't surprise me in the slightest, because it's almost a form of OCD. Like when you're in a habit, it's really hard to break, and I think getting out of that mindset is very difficult. It does take a lot, so I think that's one of the biggest things I've ever overcome. Excuse me. Also, I think being able to admit to myself that I have had problems with like intimacy and stuff, because I was sexually abused when I was a child, by 2 different people, and I think that has been something that I'm still not really over, but I'm working through it. And I have a lovely girlfriend, and she's very understanding and patient with me if I panic about things, because I do get really anxious sometimes when she's with me, and it's nothing to do with her. I did it with all my past relationships, and I think that it's just me sort of not quite knowing how to deal with things. So maybe that doesn't count as something I've overcome. But anyway, so long and short, the anorexia, and I guess acknowledging that I was sexually abused and just admitting it to myself and trying to like overcome that. Okay. April again asks, what are 3 facts that we don't know about you? This is so difficult to say because I am like super open and honest, and I'm like always kind of, I don't know, I'm always sharing facts with you guys. But I have written down a few that I think maybe you won't know. Let me scroll and find what I'd written in my notes, if you don't mind. Okay, so the first fact that not very many people know, and like close friends will know this stuff, but like, you know, you guys might not. I'm a game geek. Quite a big one. I really love games, like really, like I immerse myself in them in the same way that most people immerse themselves in like a Netflix series. Like I love gaming. When I was younger, I had a really nice friend who lived in Scotland, and he came down one Easter and he said to me, oh, I see you have a PlayStation 2. What kind of games do you have? Because he was a keen gamer. And he looked at my games and he was like, Mary, you've just wasted all that money. Like your mum like buying you that PlayStation is just a waste. Like you are not using it to its full ability, because all I had were a few kind of dance mat games, like just, you know, and had a Buffy game because I love Buffy, and I had a few kids games because they're easy, like Barbie and Bratz. And he was like, Mary, no, you need to start using your PlayStation to its full ability. So he came back down like that summer, and he brought with him Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2, Final Fantasy XII, Final Fantasy 7 and 8, Project Zero 2 and 3, sometimes known as Fatal Frame in the US, which is a horror game, and Silent Hill 2 and 3. And it was from there, it was cemented. We spent the entire summer in front of the TV. Screw the outdoors. We were like glued, and it was like this portal had been opened that I never knew existed, and it was like magic. So that's definitely one fact that not many people know, is that I really love gaming, but I'm broke, so I've never upgraded from a PlayStation 2. I also hate the fact that when you get like a PlayStation 3 and 4, the like previous games don't work. Like, with the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1 games will work on that, but if you get PlayStation 3, you have to keep your PlayStation 2, blah blah blah, and it's just like, really? So I kind of just watch things on YouTube now, like watch whole playthroughs of things to like keep up, which is just really silly. Another fact about me that people don't really know, so fact number 2, is that I'm autistic, which you do know, but one of the things that like my autism kind of, I don't know, impacts is that I get really obsessed about things. And it's like not just like a little bit of an obsession, it's like this like intense, can't think about anything else, can't talk about anything else, can't function without thinking about whatever, and it's usually with a specific celebrity. And I've done this since I was 2 years old. The first celebrity I was ever like that with Michael Jackson. And like, I'm not a fickle person, so like I'll always love like the same celebrities. So like, say, like even though I move on and I get a new obsession, the old obsession doesn't really go. They're just, you know, they're put on the shelf, but they're right there on that shelf proudly displayed. So if that makes sense. So like Gwen Stefani, Michael Jackson, they're like 2 of my biggest heroes. And then like as I got older, there were like crushes like Fergie, Beyonce, and at the moment it's Julia Roberts. I love her, guys. I love her. And I don't know why it happens. I don't know. Like, I do think the autism is like partially related. But then my mum was like the same way as a kid. And I mean, she's not as severe as me, but she does really love certain celebrities. So maybe that's what it is. And it's not like in a superficial way, like, oh, I really love celebrity culture and stuff. It's not like, oh, I would love to go to an award show just to look at the celebrities. It's not like that. It's just like I get fixated with them as people. Like, I want to know about their lives, what their hobbies are. Like, I get an actual interest in them. I sound like a stalker. Anyway, my last fact number 3, I'm really sorry, April, because I have gone on and on, is I didn't meet my dad until I was 19, and I found out that I have 2 very sweet half-sisters, who I absolutely adore. I don't see any of them very often. My dad like lives in Kent, but he's like super busy because he is an orthopedic consultant surgeon, so he's like constantly on the go with work, and he also rows as a hobby, so he's like very, 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 very busy. And then my sisters, I mean, the older of the 2 is like traveling everywhere and like crazy busy. The younger of the 2 is doing exams, but I love them all to pieces, and like getting to meet them and be a part of their lives was something I dreamed about since I was a child. I mean, I didn't know my sisters existed when I was a kid, but you know, just knowing that I actually have blood siblings now, that's something I wanted all through life. So yeah, those are my 3 facts. And I hope they suffice. I'm just gonna delete those questions so that I don't they don't come up again in the randomizer. Okay. April asks, when did you first realise you were gay? I'm laughing because it's a funny story. And it's one that I think annoys a lot of gay people, because I've got that typical I've kind of always known mentality, and there's nothing wrong with not always knowing. Some people don't realise till they're in their 70s, and that's fine. But for me, I really did always have this kind of like inkling. The first time I ever mentioned it, I was 2 years old. I went, mum needed to go out somewhere very badly. There was nobody to look after me, and so I ended up staying with these my mum's like lesbian friends and they had me. And when I left that day, I said to mum, how come they live together? Are they like sisters? What's the deal? And mum's like super open person, so she explained. She was like, no, they're a couple. Like, sometimes women love women, sometimes men love men, sometimes people love both. It's not like a big deal. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I said, I'm one of those. And mum was like, obviously being 2, she was just like, okay, cool, you know, that's nice, Mary. But then this girl, I started going to school when I was 4, obviously, and I met this girl when I was 5, and we like became like best friends, inseparable, and she actually lived across the road from me. And I used to say to mum all the time, you know, when we grow up, we're going to be lesbians together. And what's so funny is this girl did turn out to be gay too. So maybe we just both knew. We're not gay together, but we're both gay. So I told my mum that again when I was like in primary school. And obviously again, you know, kids say funny things. So she was just like, okay, cool, that's fine. You know, you do you, Mary. But then I hit puberty super early when I was like 8. So like hormones started, sexual feelings started. And I, again, used to go around telling everybody, you know, I'm gay, right? And like, everybody at primary school was just like, okay, because I think everybody just thought I was just saying it, you know? I think everyone just thought she doesn't really know what she's talking about. But then it was when I became a teenager and it never disappeared that my mum started to realise, like, oh, okay, she kind of and she really has never like had a crush on a guy. Maybe this is like for real. And I really fell in love with this girl when I was like 14. And my mum realised at that point, it was like, oh, okay, you are actually gay. And I kept this very funny diary. Maybe I'll read it to you one day. And I realised then, and so did mum, and that was sort of Then came like a big period of like acceptance, and that was really difficult because I became quite like, I got internalized homophobia, and I was like mad at myself, and I was just like, oh god, am I disgusting, which is so sad. But there was this one time, and I'll never forget it, about a year in, I was 15, I was sat in school really fucking bored, excuse my language, really freaking bored in geography, and I looked in front of me, and in front of me there was a girl and a boy. I looked from one to the other, and I thought to myself, you know what? So what if I would rather be with like her than him? Like, is that really like a crime? And that was kind of when I had this like acceptance, and I think, yeah, that was kind of it really. So sorry, there's not really like a short answer to that one, April, but like I guess it was something that was always there. It's just, it didn't come into like play until I was quite old. Well, not really, that's not old, is it? But you know what I mean. Anyway, let's move, because otherwise I'm never gonna get through all these. Okay, so Tisha the Brave asks, this is funny, when did you discover your soy and gluten allergy? So for those who don't know, I am deathly allergic to both soy and gluten, which was fun times. So I had always struggled with like tummy problems, but like my mum and I had kind of always thought maybe it was to do with the fact that I've got this tube in my head, my shunt, and maybe like the way it is in my tummy, like the area that it is, because it kind of finishes near my tummy, like maybe that had like impacted me. So we'd never really like questioned that like maybe I had an intolerance to a food, but I've always had problems, as in like really badly. Like when I was 10, I missed almost a year off school because my stomach was just insane. So I've never really found eating particularly like simple because I get tummy ache all the gosh darn time. But then I started to get really bad upset stomach, really bad like diarrhea, and like really bad vomiting. At first we thought it was a bug, then it never went to the doctors, you know, started exploring things, and this was about like 2 years into my veganism, so about 3 years ago now, and I started cutting out different things. I tried cutting out nuts, tried cutting out soy, funnily enough, and then eventually I cut out gluten and it got better. But that wasn't until I'd had a colonoscopy, an endoscopy, countless blood tests, which all said I did not have celiac disease, but then they conveniently lost them, and they were like, no, you've never had tests. So I don't know whether they just didn't want to give me the prescription food or what, but I'm not doing the trial again, because you have to eat gluten for 6 weeks before you can get tested, and I can't. I used to faint with the pain. So anyway, eventually we realised that it was gluten. I went on a date with this girl, and I said to myself, I remember it really specifically, I said to myself, I'm gonna have a pasta, and if I get tummy ache after this pasta, it's gluten. Because it was the most plain pasta. It was just arrabbiata, so it was just spicy pasta with like spicy tomato sauce. Lo and behold, I spent the rest of that day having diarrhea, and so I thought, okay, it's gluten. So I cut out gluten, and then about a year after that, I started like getting so sick, and my tummy ache started really badly again, and I was like, what's going on? I'm not eating gluten. Why is this happening? And I suddenly realised, hang on, I got really sick that time when I had coffee and I had soy milk in it, and I started putting 2 and 2 together, and I was like, it's soy. It is soy. And I was so angry because whenever there's like a gluten-free product, people, like a meat substitute, like a burger, it's like, okay, we'll just make it out of soy because that tastes really meaty. So I was really bummed out by that one. It was fine though. So yeah, about 3 years ago now, and it was just very annoying, but I'm completely fine now. I love it. I love all the food that I eat. You just have to be a bit adventurous. Okay, so moving on. Tisha the Brave asks, when did your obsession with Julia Roberts start? Well, obviously you now know that I have these funny little celebrity obsessions, which is just really funny. So when did the Julia one start? So I didn't really know Julia Roberts very well. at all. But then this girl told me, and then this girl told me to watch Notting Hill, and that was like such a bad thing to watch because I think her character is such a douchebag in that. So I watched Notting Hill and I was like, oh my god, she's such an arsehole. Like, her character is so annoying. I'm never watching a movie with her ever again. And then my mum was like, Mary, you need to watch Pretty Woman. Like, that film will change your life. And I was like, no, because Julia annoys me. How funny is this? And she was like, no, Mary, you don't understand. You will fall in love with Julia Roberts after this film. Like, you can't not love her in this movie. So I was like, oh, fine. It took about 10 minutes into that film and I was like, oh my god, she's so beautiful and so cute and so endearing, and I just loved everything about her. I was like, oh my god, her voice and her hair and her, like, everything, her dimples and like her everything, oh my god. And then the obsession became a thing, and I watched this interview with her. And it was funny because it's a notorious one where everyone's like, oh, Julia's a bitch in it. But actually, if you watch it, like, as a feminist, it's so disgusting the way she's treated in it. Like, I would be a bitch too. And I was on her side. And that was actually how I got into feminism as well. Like, Julia taught me about feminism because I thought, how, like, if that was a man, like, no way would they be treated like that. And oh my god, I'm going to put a link to that interview in the description below. It was her interview with, what's his name, that arsehole, Howard Stern. And I know he's like funny and you have to take everything he says with a pinch of salt, but like, no, this was like, this really irritated me. So I started to watch other interviews with her and I realised she's like the sweetest person. She's so like zen, and her kids are so like hippie. And like when she met her husband, like, 'cause obviously she's notoriously been out with like a lot of celebrities, but she met her husband who's kind of like a nobody. I mean, he's a surfer and a cinematographer, but you know, he's not like that well known. And I think she calmed down and matured, and then she had kids and became like this adorable mama and like got into like knitting and geeky things, and I just fell so in love with her and I was like, oh my god, you're so cute. So yes, long story short, it was when I watched Pretty Women, which was in, how long ago was this? About 3 years ago as well? I don't know. I need to find out. So yeah, I think about 2014, and that was how the obsession began. Sorry, Tisha, that was long. Okay, oh, these are the randomizer's picking all Tisha's questions. Tisha the Brave asks, how do you cope with your day-to-day life with your disabilities? It's a really good question. So I went to a mainstream school. My mum fought and fought for me to get statemented, but I could not get statemented because I could articulate, and they didn't believe that I had anything wrong with me. And because I don't really have like learning disabilities, like I don't have like dyslexia, for example, it's like more just like autism and motor skill problems, they didn't believe there was anything wrong. So I had to go to a mainstream school, and like back then teachers weren't very understanding and didn't really like have a concept of like how to cope with disabled people, especially ones that could articulate and seem perfectly normal. I think they treated it as if I was just misbehaving when I didn't understand something. So for many, many years, I didn't even know I was disabled. I had been indoctrinated by these teachers. No, you have nothing wrong with you. Just because you have like a tube in your head, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. You are completely the same as everyone else in this school, you know. And I had been so indoctrinated that it wasn't until I quit school and went into adulthood that I started to realise my own disabilities. And then friends who would stay with me for long periods of time, like would come over for like a whole weekend, would be like, oh, the way you do that is so weird, like, is that your disabilities? And I'd be like, I guess it is, like, that's just normal to me. But yeah, like getting dressed, I would like literally put my top on not just inside out but like upside down. How does one even do that? But I would. Like small things like that would just add up. The way I would like chop things, and I would like cut my fingers, and I was just so clumsy, and like friends would be like, oh dude, and then I started to realise my own difficulties. And what was really nice is over time I was able to like rationalise what was wrong with me, and now my mum and I have a super close relationship because I'm able to say to her, Mum, I'm feeling upset right now because you have done this, and I know it is an irrational thing to be upset over, but this upsets me because of this. And what's really great is now we have this relationship where I just tell her what's going on, and, you know, so in short, how do I cope with this? It's much easier now that I accept that it's there, and I'm like, you know what, yeah, I am disabled, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I can't, you know, it doesn't mean I need to be, don't get me wrong, I didn't want the world to stop turning for me in school just because I was disabled, but I needed some sort of support because I didn't understand normal instructions. You know, things have to be worded in a different way, and like, I'm old enough now that if I don't understand something like that somebody says to me, I just say, I'm really sorry, I have some difficulties, could you just rephrase that, because when you say that, it makes no sense to me. And my friends and family are really used to it now, and they're like, oh, okay, soz, and then they'll reword things. Like, I don't know, it's funny. Like, things like the word up could mean something very different to me to normal people. I don't want to say normal people, able-bodied people. So, day-to-day life, much easier now that I can understand and rationalise, but growing up, it was bad, and I think that's a big part of why I had such bad problems mentally. Okay, sorry for such a... Oh, it's already 26 minutes long. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. April asks, how do you go about turning negatives into positives? That is such a good question, because I am a super duper negative person and I need to not be. I'm trying not to be though. Okay, so I think a lot of life is about habits, forming habits, and I think that being a really negative person is almost like a habit. You know, you get something like frustrates you, and it's so easy to be like, okay, well, that's shit, everything's shit, the world is shit, everyone's against me, the end. And I think the more negative you are, the more negativity you're going to attract, because of the law of attraction. So for me, I try and catch myself before it happens. If I like say something really bad, like, I don't know, I mean, I can't talk about self-esteem because I've got very low self-esteem, and I'm trying to work on that at the moment. But okay, one of my things is I always say sorry to people, and that is a negative attribute, because I apologise for things that aren't necessary to apologise for. So it's just about catching yourself in time. It's about, like, if I say, like, go to say it, like, oh, I'm sorry, I'll be like, no, actually, I'm not sorry. I am embarrassed because I feel that I've inconvenienced you, but this is not the case probably, and it's probably, you know, just something that I'm imagining. And I am able to I just try and vocalise it out loud. Oh my god, my foot is so dead. I'm sorry, I've got the worst pins and needles. My foot's completely numb. I could put needles in it and I wouldn't feel it. This time I'm not going to get up and sprain my foot. But anyway, yeah, so I think catching yourself, and the more you do it, the more you're like, okay, no, I shouldn't have said that, blah, 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 the more you can form that into a habit, into a positive habit. But it is difficult, and it does take so much work. And for me as well, the law of attraction, books like The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, and then the sequels, The Power, The Magic, etc., they're lifesavers. So yeah, that's for me what I would do. Okay, next question. April asks, at what point, lightbulb moment, did you decide you needed to recover from anorexia? It's a really good question, April. And it's funny because there was no lightbulb moment. Unfortunately, I wish I could say there was. It was just a huge accumulation of things. My back pain, where my bones were like protruding out of my back, my spine was like sticking out, and it was so sore that I could just about walk. There was a point where I couldn't stand up anymore, so when I'd make myself vomit, there would be blood in it, which growing up with a medical mother, you know that that's not a good sign. Funnily enough, I got introduced to The Secret by a dear friend, and actually that friend was a super positive person in my life who really helped me when I was struggling at my worst. So I think meeting her was really good. And then one day, Now, I'll never forget this story. My friend was round and she was eating cookies, obviously in my pre-vegan days. She was eating cookies and I don't know how or where that confidence came from, but I ignored that voice in my head being like, don't you dare, you fat bitch. And I said, can I have a cookie? And I remember my friend was shaking when she gave it to me. She was like, oh my God. In her head, she didn't want to make a big deal, but she handed me this cookie, but I could see tears streaming down her face, but I was trying to ignore it. And I ate this cookie and it was like the first battle was done. The first battle, hardest battle, and then I started to feel better. So, in short, there was no light bulb moment. It was combination and accumulation of things. And I just wanted to take that control of my life. I realised, I thought I was in control, but I realised that I had lost control and I wanted to take it back. So I think, yeah, I'm so sorry, because there is no like moment where I just thought, yeah, I'm going to recover now. It was a long process, took over a year to feel even vaguely normal. My back was super painful for so long and still hurts now, you know, sometimes. I think I've done permanent damage, which is a shame, but anyway, so that's that. Oh. Okay. Ellie asks, what are your experiences being a disabled activist? That's another such good question. So I'll be really honest, Ellie. I think I have felt very useless to the movement at times, which is really sad. Nobody's made me feel that way though. So if you're watching this and you're like, dude, we've tried to make you feel welcome, it's not you, it is me. It is a self-esteem issue. And I think when I have to like take my walker, I have to be like, oh, you know, when people are giving me a lift somewhere to do activism, I have to say, by the way, I have a walker, will it fit in your boot? And I always feel so embarrassed and so inconvenienced. And then it's like everybody has to kind of make, what I hate is that I feel like everybody probably has to make the event somewhat surrounding me, because it's like, okay, oh no, hang on, we have to do this because Mary wouldn't be able to do that otherwise. And it's like, I just feel so embarrassed. And like a lot of the time when I've done like vigils, I've had to like sit in the car because of the extreme weather conditions, because I can't take extreme hot heat and I can't take extreme coldness because my body temperature just goes mad. So it's just been, I've just felt like a real inconvenience and I feel really guilty about that. But no one's made me feel like that. I have made myself feel like that, because really what's happening is everybody's just thinking nothing of it and they're focused on the animals and they're thinking, okay, cool, we need to do this today. But in my head I'm like thinking, oh my god, I'm like stressing everybody out, but really no, I'm stressing myself out. So it is, you know, these experiences are my own and no one has made me feel like that. It's self-esteem that I need to work on. But I've always felt like a really useless person and that's nobody's fault except mine. So dealing with being a disabled activist, it can be tough because I put pressure on myself, but really it's fine. But everything is quite disabled friendly. But going into London's slightly more difficult because disability access on like tubes and trains is just not that great, surprisingly, despite the fact that it's London. But local events are fine and I convince myself they're not, but they are. So if you're watching this and you've hosted an event that I've been to, thank you for making me feel welcome, and I'm sorry that I feel like I've ruined it. Oh, my throat's really sore now, it's been 33 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put like timestamps for the questions so you don't have to watch the whole video. Okay, April asks, are there any cons to being vegan? Yes, April, there are cons to being vegan. For me, I mean, this is activism related, but I ended up with the worst post-traumatic stress disorder. Still have nightmares every day. I'm working on it at the moment, but yes, it's horrendous. I can't sleep at night because of everything I know. It's just so painful, and I think I have very, very severe dystopia, which is a term coined by the vegan psychologist Claire Mann. She's amazing, by the way. I'll put a link to her website in the description below. You should all check out her book, Dystopia. It's new, it's amazing, and it teaches you how to deal with this. Because I think a lot of vegans have this, where you just feel like, I don't know what to do. I can now, it's like the Matrix, you know, I've taken this red pill and I can now see the world for what it is, and it's so damn painful and it's so horrible. But it's sort of about, I don't know, how you find ways to manage this. But yes, so for me, I think the cons are the fact that once you've opened your eyes, the world suddenly becomes a very bleak place, and it's very hard then to pull yourself out of that, and it's quite easy to slip into a depression. And I remember this really interesting article that I read about, like, should veganism come with a mental health warning? And yeah, probably should, because once you know, you know, and it's so bad because you just kind of want to change the world in one day and you can't, and that's frustrating. But ultimately it's just about learning how to cope with that. But those to me are the biggest cons. It's dealing with the rest of the world while you're one step ahead, if that makes sense. And I don't mean that in a superior way. I don't have like a superiority complex. I just mean once you know this, once you have this, the tools and this information, it becomes very, very, like, I don't know. You'll know what I mean if you know what I mean. That makes no sense. My throat. Oh my god, I've only got a few questions left. Okay. So April asks, to you, what are 3 things that you love about being vegan? That's better. I'm glad we got the negative one out of the way first. Okay, so for me, it's obviously really easy to say the 3 main ones, you know, the fact that you're helping the animals, helping the environment, helping your health. But actually, I'm going to do 3 different ones. So the first one is, I love that when I go outside into the garden and I watch the spiders running around with their little egg sacs on their back, or when I watch ants running around building their little nests, or when I watch the bees collecting their pollen, that I see them as equals, and I mean that in like the truest sense. I have so much goddamn respect for them, and I'd never had that before. I like being able to look into the eyes of any animal, dog, cat, pig, cow, sheep, chicken, bee, bunny rabbit, guinea pig, elephant. I've never looked into the eyes of an elephant. Oh, imagine doing that. Anyway, I like being able to look into their eyes and to think, you are my true equal. Like, there is no difference between me and an ant. They might be smaller, but they feel and they think, and I love that. I love that. I think it's such a nice feeling. You feel so connected, and I don't want to get all like hippie and cheesy, but like when you go for little walks, you just feel so connected to everything around you. Like, looking around, you listen to the birds and you just think, God, you're just magical little beings. And I love that feeling. So that's number 1. 2, food enjoyment. Oh my god, I just never cared about cooking. I realised how unhealthy my diet was actually when I became vegan, because I just thought, oh shite, I never ate fruit, I never ate veg, I never really cared. I just used to eat McDonald's, if I'm honest. I mean, I did when I was a kid, and my mum used to actually cook for me and stuff, but like once I got into teenage years and I was cooking for myself, I didn't. I just ate McDonald's. So and there's nothing wrong with being a fast food vegan eater, by the way, but what I'm saying is I realised, like, I found a love for vegetables and fruit, because I never really liked them either, but like suddenly it's like you're kind of forced to eat them, but suddenly there's this new enjoyment. And I also discovered like herbs and spices, and I like learnt to cook. I mean, it's an amazing feeling. I just love that, like being able to actually eat food and be like, yes, this is yummy. Like, and truly enjoying it. You truly feel all the flavors, and I really appreciate that. So I think food enjoyment is number 2. The last one is, I think it gave me not just like a look into speciesism, but when I went vegan, I started to think, okay, so if this is like something that I was sort of indoctrinated into believing, what other lies have I been told? And I started to get into human rights as well as animal rights, and I started to realise, hang on a minute, the world is not an equal place. I started to get into feminism, I started to get into like the Black Lives Matter movement, I started to get into learning about like being transgender and like non-binary and all the different sort of gender struggles. And I realised that this world is just not black and white, and I think that I have this new appreciation and sympathy for humans because I feel connected to all sentient life, and that does include people. So I think, yeah, I think that's something I really, really love, is that I have sort of, I don't know, been able to connect to all sentient life, from humans to animals. Okay, sorry, that was such a long answer. I only got 3 questions left. If you've stayed this long, well done. April asks, what's your favourite book / movie of all time, and why did it speak to you so much? Oh guys, April, you're gonna wish you didn't ask that question. My favourite book of all time is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and my favourite movie of all time is James Cameron's Avatar. Until I saw James Cameron's Avatar, I always loved certain films and felt very, very connected to them, but until I saw Avatar, I didn't realise you could feel that way about a film. I've never loved anything like I love Avatar. I can't actually put it into words. I left the cinema that day like a changed person, literally. It made me want to be a better human being. Made me see things in a completely new way. I'm surprised I didn't go vegan then and there, actually, because it's quite a vegan message. I know, like, that the Na'vi hunt, but their respect for, like, the planet, for the moon that they live on, Pandora is a moon. It's cheeky. It's just, I don't know. I think James Cameron has magical powers, because I felt very, very touched after the first time I saw Titanic as well. That really spoke to me, that film. And I think he's just a very good director, because I really like True Lies as well. But I think there's just something about Avatar that I can't put my finger on. And I left that day thinking, I just wish we could all move to Pandora and become Na'vi. I loved it. I literally, do you know that for years on my Facebook page, I used to have, under religion, I used to have Na'vi. and worship like Awa, like their god. And then The Kite Runner. Up until The Kite Runner, my favourite book was The Merman by Dick King-Smith, which I still really, that's in my top 5. But like, The Kite Runner was just, oh, The Kite Runner. I'm just thinking about it and getting emotional for you 1,000 times over. If you haven't read it, go and read it. I'm going to put a link in the description below to go and buy it on Amazon right now. I'm not even going to go into more detail. I don't need to. I've been going on too long. 2 questions left. So light-hearted. Devochka Dies asks, what cartoon characters would you want to bang? Because knowing you, there are probably a few. Help, that's so funny. Okay, you know who? She's right, by the way, there are a few. You know who I think is so underrated in how sexy they are? Like, okay, you're gonna laugh at me and you're gonna be like, what the fuck are you talking about, Mary? Listen, just hear me out, okay? I think Marge Simpson is amazing. Okay, hear me out. She's like this amazing mum. She puts up with Bart and his naughtiness. Somehow she puts up with Homer, and I don't know how she hasn't killed him, because I would have, but she loves him unconditionally. She juggles these 3 kids as a homemaker, like, without making a salary herself, and like, she has had various jobs, but like, she just works so hard, and through it all, she's just like this sweet, hilarious woman who's so funny and has so many funny, quirky habits and does cute things. And I don't know, man, I just think she's really sexy as well. I would so marry her if I was a cartoon. I mean, obviously, like, I told you earlier, I'm a gamer. There are lots of game characters, but they're not really like 2D, so I don't know if they count as cartoon characters. Didn't realise how much I probably had a crush on her as a kid, but Miss Bellum from the Powerpuff Girls. You know, guys. You know. I think all the Disney princesses are, like, stunning. I mean, Elsa is like bae. Pocahontas. Oh my god. Yeah, there's a list here. I won't go on and on, but yeah. Anyway, my last question of the video. It's nearly an hour long Q&A. I'm gonna have to break this up, I think. Tisha the Brave asks, have you converted a meat eater to veganism? The answer is, I don't know. I guess my mum. But other than my mum, I don't know the answer, because I mean, I used to run a blog on Tumblr that got quite big called Advice for Vegans. Maybe some of you actually know me from that. And that had 13,000 followers, and I think I helped quite a few people on there, maybe. I don't know. And then now I'm a Challenge 22. I volunteer for Challenge 22, so I think I might have helped a few people on there. But other than my mum, I can't tell you anyone in concrete that yes, I've definitely like helped them to transition from meat eater to vegan. I hope. Excuse me. I hope so. My lovely friend Martin said I'd helped him, actually. He used to come to Hertfordshire Chicken Save, and now he's like just a general like activist, and he's really cool. And I didn't realise, but he said that it was Hertfordshire Chicken Save that helped, but that's not really me, that's like a whole joint effort. But anyway, so I guess that's like a very long-winded answer. So what I'm going to do is, in the description below, I'm going to timestamp everything, so you can just skip to your question and then probably leave. And I'll put some links to like the appropriate things below. But thank you so much. If you've actually watched all of this, gold star to you. Maybe I should send you something if you have, like some vegan cookies or something. No, if you have, thank you so much. And if not, it's cool. Thanks for watching. And I will speak to you soon. Bye, guys.